Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaura Pimanande Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vrajgacharya Stotra Satya Sri Simar His Divine Grace Thirabhai Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi Biti Founder His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantarashana Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Chakshurambiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Vipasindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Vadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishriki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukham karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our morning Bhagavatam class. I have chosen a verse from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 9. I was making reference to this yesterday, which is entitled The Passing Away of Bhishmadev. Text number 2.6 is quite a long purport. I will not read the entire purport, but a good portion of it. So 1.9.26 Purusha Swa Bhava Vihitan Yatha Varnam Yathasramam Vairagya Raghupadibhyam Amnato Bhaya Lakshanam Purusha Swabhava Purusha, how is it now? You know, Purusha Swabhava Vihitam Yata Varnam Yatasramam Vairagya Raghupadibhyam Amnato bhaya lakshanam Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varnam yatha shramam Vairagya ragopadibhyam Amnato bhaya lakshanam Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varnam yatha shramam Vairagya ragopadibhyam Amnato bhaya lakshanam
Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varnam yatha shramam Vairagya ragupadibhyam Amnato vyalakshanam
Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varnam yatha shramam Vairagya ragupadibhyam Amnato bhaya lakshanam Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varnam yatha shramam Vairagya ragupadibhyam Amnato bhaya lakshanam
Ladies,
Purusha svabhava vihitam
Purusha svabhava vihitam
Yatha varnam yatha shramam
yatha shramam
Vairagya ragupadibhyam Amnato vyaya lakshanam
Purusha svabhava vihitam Yatha varna yatha shramam Vairagya ragupadibhyam Annabhaya lakshmana
Purusha, the human being, Swabhava, by his own acquired qualities, Vihitan, prescribed, Yatha, according to, Varnam, classification of castes, Yatha, according to, Ashramam, orders of life, Vairagya, detachment, Raga, attachment, Upadibhyam, out of such designations, Amnata, systematically, Ubhaya, both, Lakshanan, symptoms. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. At Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishmadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, prescribed, or described rather, counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Kindly repeat after me. At Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishmadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Purport. The conception of 4 castes and of 4 orders of life as planned by the Lord Himself, Bhagavad Gita 4.13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage or the conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described in the same spirit, and so also in the Mahabharata, it is more elaborately described by Bhishma Dev in the Shanti Parva, beginning from the 60th chapter. The Varnashrama Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being, just to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Bhishma Dev advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. 1, not to become angry. 2, not to lie. 3, to equally distribute wealth. 4, to forgive. 5, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife. 6, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body. 7, not to be inimical toward anyone. 8, to be simple. And 9, to support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. And besides these, the Brahmanas, the intelligent men, the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the laborer class must acquire special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. a lot of people would lose their occupation if that was followed. In the modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. And I'm skipping and going to the last portion of the purport, the last paragraph. Prabhupada actually continues here elaborating about the Kshatriya duties and responsibilities, and the same for Vaishyas and then Shudras, and then he concludes at the end of the purport as follows. The Varnas are, so to speak, classifications of different occupations, and ashrama dharma is a gradual progress on the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated, and one is dependent on the other. The main purpose of ashrama dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. The brahmachari ashram is the training ground for the prospective candidates. In this ashram, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of the living being. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashrama dharma is a means of detachment. One who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely, renounced, and thus live on charity only, not to accumulate wealth, but just to keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. A household life is for one who is attached, and the vanaprastha and sannyas orders of life are for those who are detached from material life. The brahmachari ashram is especially meant for training both the attached and the detached. I'll read the text again. Jai Sri Radhadesh ki jai. Translation: At Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishma Dev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Yesterday in our presentation, or maybe in the class yesterday also, I was making reference to this particular verse. In the context, I'll just repeat it in case some of you might not have caught on or may not have heard. This is the very first of many instructions given by Grandfather Bhishma Dev to a very exalted personality also, Yudhishthira Maharaj. And as pointed out yesterday in the very first sentence of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is, very directly, immediately, clearly stating how this instruction, this first instruction given by Grandfather Bhishmadev, in terms of the 4 orders of life, 4 varnas, 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders, ashramas, are created by the Supreme Lord, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to help accelerate the development, ultimately the development of spiritual qualities. Means to help us advance in Krishna consciousness. It's not the only place where this is underlined, and it may seem, because that argument is sometimes brought up, it may seem opposite to what, on the other hand, we hear, for example, in the first canto, again in the Bhagavatam, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayada Haitukam. Isn't it? That's simply by practice of bhakti, devotional service. The 2 things that are mentioned here, in terms of knowledge and detachment, will automatically come. So then the question may rise, then why do we need Varnashrama? If by practicing devotional service, bhakti, as this verse is telling, then automatically knowledge and detachment will come, then why do we need all these rules and regulations and this whole system? At first it may seem contradictory or not compatible, but we should understand that this knowledge and detachment will come when we practice full, pure devotional service. And to practice pure devotional service is not so easy. It's the same point that Prabhupada was making, to become or to be a Vaishnava. When Prabhupada refers to Vaishnava, it means pure Vaishnava. It is not so easy. Also, throughout the Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's conversations also, he often uses the word caste. We know how there's so much of negative connotation to the word caste, the caste system. Of course, we understand caste in terms of, divisions, natural divisions. And this is something I feel very essential for us as devotees, as members of the movement established by Srila Prabhupada, that the terms that are used in the Shastra, specifically in the context of Varna and Ashrama, these are meant to be, and are actually, we may not fully understand or may not be able to fully accept, but these are standard terms or standard divisions. This is the standard, meant to be the standard way of living. And the more quickly we come to that understanding, and the more quickly we are able to figure out, it may not be easy, but the more we can work out, understand how to put that system into practice, then the more closer we'll come to what the Vedic culture is meant to be. It is meant to be simultaneously these 2 things, being engaged in full devotional service on the one hand, which is especially what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized, and which he, of course, personally demonstrated. And of course, we know as devotees how that's one of the main reasons why the Lord advented to personally show us how to surrender and what full surrender actually means. And at the same time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving importance, a great importance to the teachings that are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, in one lecture, Prabhupada is telling the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, they're not different. Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Kuru Krishna Shika. Lord Chaitanya is teaching us to follow the teachings of Lord Krishna. Of course, he displayed and demonstrated in a very unique and special way, which, when we hear the statements, by Srila Prabhupada in regards to what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught and demonstrated. At one point, Srila Prabhupada mentions how Lord Chaitanya, what he demonstrated, what he displayed, especially in the last 12 years in Vrindavan, when he was totally, completely absorbed, isn't it? I mean, practically disconnected with the outside world, fully immersed in transcendental ecstasy. So Prabhupada said, we will not imitate, we cannot, we will not and we cannot imitate Lord Chaitanya. Nor can we imitate Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur. Our goal is to come eventually to that platform of totally being absorbed. And the process of devotional service is gradually meant to bring us to that platform. But as mentioned here and in many other places as well, unless we as devotees give sufficient time to hear about what may seem initially, what is actually material, but as we discussed yesterday, there's that whole dimension in terms of dharma of different prescribed duties. This is mentioned here also. In the human form of life, there are specific prescribed Vedic duties. And for the most part, in modern day society, these prescribed duties are unknown to the vast majority of people, and they are also unknown to the vast majority of our devotees. What are meant to be the prescribed duties? Small example, which is especially meant to be of direct importance to householders. What does Narada Muni mention in the 7th canto? 7th canto, chapters 11 to 15, which is a whole presentation by Narada Muni, very important for all of our devotees to actually read and study this particular section. Because similar to what Bhishmadev is doing here, Narada Muni is speaking to the same personality, Yudhisthira Maharaj, who is inquiring as to what are the duties or what are his duties as a householder in terms of Varnashrama Dharma. And so the example I want to give, which we are failing to understand, otherwise we would be doing something different. We are failing to understand, and Prabhupada gives, elaborates actually in some of the purports of that section of the Bhagavatam. The main and primary prescribed duty for householders is meant to be connected with agriculture. And it's interesting how the early founders, we call the founding fathers of America. Anyone here from the US? And I'm going to tell something positive. Very often we tell negative things. But the founding fathers, Abraham Lincoln and others, they're quoted as saying that America will remain strong and prosperous if it keeps agriculture as the main activity in the center. Very interesting, because in the early days, that was like before the era of industrialization. Industrialization actually has really messed up the whole planet in so many ways. I mean, we may say, we can also, there's so many things that, different types of so-called advancement, but when we weigh and look all of the disadvantages and destruction also, it's like, we take it for granted every day. We jump in the car and we go, like we'll be doing this morning, so many hundreds of kilometers. But this whole automobile industry is extremely, if we analyze it closely, extremely destructive. Every day there's people killed in motor accidents. In India, when they were expanding a few years back, they were cutting down all the banyan trees on the side of the roads so that they could, so much of land, so much of the surface of the land is covered by asphalt. And the whole modern setup has completely made things very, brought so much of destruction actually to nature and our whole lifestyle, etc. Prabhupada explains how he refers to Chanakya Pandit, who explains how there are two simple ways, if we follow, whereby we can be happy. And of course everyone wants to be happy. One of the ways to actually be happy is to live locally, localized living, without having to travel far to earn a livelihood. And that automatically is there when we agree to live as most people in the Vedic culture lived, in the village. And our occupation is like in walking distance. And what is the second instruction given by Chanakya, which is also relevant in modern day society?
No debt.
Huh?
No debt.
Yes, one should avoid being a debtor. And there's a third, which is mentioned by Grandfather Bhishmadev. No, by, who is it?
Avoid being
Huh?
avoid being a dairy?
The debtor. The second, having debt.
Don't overuse your credit cards, or don't use them at all, if you can. But in modern day societies, you can't fly unless you have a credit card, practically. Either you're forced, we're forced, practically. The third is actually, Yudhishthira Maharaj mentions how one can be happy if he can nicely digest his food, which is a problem in modern day society because of the way we live and the food that we take. So in other words, Vedic culture is a very down-to-earth culture. Of course, the aim and the purpose is to elevate us to the highest level of transcendence. But this is one of the important points here, that Krishna has set up that perfect system, that ideal system which will facilitate meeting all of our different necessities of life without having to over-endeavor or over-struggle. And it's one of the major challenges, especially in modern-day society, and for all of us as devotees actually, to find that balance, to balance these two levels of life, you know, the spiritual aspect. We referred to yesterday, quoting from statements from Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explaining, giving the difference between a material swadharma and spiritual swadharma. So we need to understand the importance of these two levels, and we need to find in our individual lives and within our society, Krishna conscious society, a proper balance. And therefore, we need to hear, we need to hear such type of purports and explanations, you know, given by Srila Prabhupada, how we can actually attain this. And it may seem initially practically impossible. In some ways, by ourselves, it is, I suppose. But because it is ordained in the Shastra, and because our founder Acharya has given us, I would say, ample instructions on the subject matter, we need to give proper time and proper attention, and gradually that aspect of what is presented in the Bhagavatam will become more of a reality. In other words, what is being referred to here by grandfather Bhishmadev. So it's in many ways, Srila Prabhupada had naturally high expectations for his society, his movement. That means he had high expectations for all of us as individuals who have become connected and become part of this society. And we've heard how the perfection of a disciple, of a student, is to clearly understand what is the intent and what is the goal and purpose, and also the mood and the mentality of the teacher, or in our case, of the founder Acharya of our society. And the more we can do that, then the more we can please him, the more we can please Krishna by pleasing, the spiritual master, by pleasing our acharyas. Then by making that attempt every single day to practice devotional service, it is not so much the results. Krishna is especially appreciating and taking into account our sincere endeavor and attempt to actually understand and put into practice what is being presented. I know that the subject matter is, of course, even Krishna consciousness in itself, is a very involved subject matter, even just on the spiritual or transcendental platform, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. And in addition to that, to to take up this dimension or aspect in terms of Varnashrama dharma may seem to some devotees like too complicated. It is and it is not. It is not in the sense that, Krishna has created what is meant to be more simple in our lives. I mean, if we look and analyze modern day society, we are the ones who have introduced all kinds of complexities. Modern day life is very, you have to keep up with modern technology. And the whole lifestyle that we're all forced to live in is very taxing, very taxing, physically and mentally, what to speak of spiritually. And therefore, Krishna's plan, Krishna's whole mission is to keep things more simple. That is why we use that statement. Prabhupada uses the statement of simple living and high thinking. It's definitely challenging, but to become self-realized in itself is also challenging. But we need to somehow try and make that link or connection between the more we simplify our lives, then more easily and more quickly that whole aspect of self-realization will take place. So, just to conclude here a little bit, all of you who are connected, especially with this community and this project, in many ways, it's like you're ahead of the game. I mean, you're located in a place where you're surrounded by nature. I mean, you have land, you have some cows, you have X number of devotees. It's, of course, simply having land and cows in of itself is not the all-in-all, in the sense that we need to develop skills, we need to develop certain understanding, we need to have certain realizations to how to properly utilize these gifts of nature, as we were discussing. And Krishna's gifts, Krishna's whole material creation, of which, not only cows and land are in themselves very, yesterday I was spending a little bit of time both actually at the Goshala and in the agricultural section of the project. It's obviously Krishna's nature is very intricate. Very, very involved, and that's why, to whatever extent that we can, we're all different. Not everyone can take up all kinds of learning, but we should have that kind of desire and according to our individual positions, we should try to learn and put into practice what, the general and specific instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. And the last point being, which is in the 7, Prabhupada has formulated 7 purposes of ISKCON. The first one being to systematically propagate, isn't it? The teachings, I believe, of both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore Vedic culture, Vedic education is very much based on this principle of systematically introducing these teachings. Wherever we have temples, actually, and communities, devotees know already so many things. So we can start to introduce and teach these different subjects that we know. And as we increase our understanding and knowledge in different areas, and as possibly more people become connected and attracted to the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness, then the subject matters can gradually be increased in terms of presenting, again, both of these aspects or dimensions. So in that way, we should try to see it as something very very enlivening. There's a whole world, we call the world of Krishna consciousness, which is, throughout the various purports of the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other literatures are there as well. This is a standing order that is coming down from other acharyas also. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when instructing his son, very interesting short letter actually he wrote to him entitled O Saraswati. I should have brought it actually. But he mentions how in order for the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be well established, that there should be in Mayapur a university or educational institution. Of course we have already. And that this should be introduced in different places. And in that letter as well, kind of interesting, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains how people who are averse to the Vaishnavas, who criticize Vaishnavas because they have not all taken birth in Brahmana families. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the teachings of Vaishnavism as given by the Goswamis are in many ways revolutionary. Means you don't have to be born in a Brahmana family to take up the spiritual life or even to become a Brahmana. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in that letter how he's giving this instruction to his son, that one of the best means or ways by which to counter these criticisms that are coming from especially smarta brahmanas is to actually introduce the system of Varna and Ashrama. So hopefully all of us can try and address and address this yet unfulfilled 50% of Prabhupada's mission, and which is directly connected with established Varnashrama dharma. And we should know that a personality like Srila Prabhupada or any other Vaishnavacharyas would not be giving such instruction if it was not ultimately possible. We have a few minutes left before 9. If there's any comment or question on this. Yes. We have a runner ready to run, but unless a hand is up, he won't go anywhere. There we go.
Mart, thank you very much for your explanation. So, I understand that actually that every devotee in ISKCON is a kind of agriculturist, in the sense that, based on the book of Satsarup Goswami, planting the seeds.
Based on?
On the book of Satsarup Goswami, planting the seeds.
Oh, planting the seed.
So, actually...
Yes. We're all gardeners.
Yeah, we're all trying to plant the seeds for this society, but I can see
There's two kinds of seeds. There's the seed of bhakti and the seeds you put in the ground.
yeah. It's kind of
So
cultivation.
it's like chant, 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 plant, plant, plant. That's our philosophy. Otherwise, we'll be in cloud nine. I mean, the tendency or the danger is to be in cloud nine.
In?
Cloud nine or 8, whatever. I mean, it's to be. The tendency, the danger is not to be grounded. You know. We sometimes over endeavor to be spiritual, forgetting to be human. We remain somehow, you know, like in the name of being spiritual, we tend to. Small example. I mean, in terms of practicality, Prabhupada one time was walking on the roof of the Lotus building. He would walk different places. That day he was walking on the roof, and you know, so many devotees were there, so he was going around the roof. Then at one point he stopped, and you know, everyone stopped. Prabhupada said, "I can see, but you cannot see." Everyone looked at one another. What is Prabhupada saying, you know? Then he continued. So he went around like that 3 times, stopping at the same place and making the same statement. Then finally, one devotee dared to ask Prabhupada, "What do you see that we cannot see?" And Prabhupada was he pointed to a light bulb. The sun has already risen. Why this light bulb is still on? I'm just saying, Prabhupada is very, very practical. So, you know, sometimes we can be over spiritual by neglecting what it's like, you know, that is kanistha mentality that Prabhupada gives the example sometimes, not all the time. Someone who's a pujari may think that, well, you know, my life is perfect, I'm here, I'm serving the Lord, and that's it. But if one neglects the devotees of the Lord, then his so-called service to Krishna is incomplete, isn't it? This is an important instruction given by Lord Shiva. Aradhananam sarvesam Vishnur aradhanam param tasmat parataram devi tadyanam samarsanam. She was asking, well, who's the greatest of all personalities? And Lord Shiva replied, Vishnu. But even greater than Vishnu are those living entities, or what is dear to Vishnu. The Brahmanas are very dear to Vishnu. We should serve the Brahmanas, worship the Brahmanas, or the devotees. The cows are very dear to Vishnu, to Krishna. So if we don't care for the cows, if we don't care for Krishna's nature, if we don't care for so many things that are dear to Krishna, then what is the meaning of our being devoted to Krishna if we don't understand what is dear to Krishna also, right? So it's not, it's a question of balancing. Yeah.
But what we see now in society is actually that we go in the opposite direction. Instead of the people go more to the country, the people, especially in India, I heard, they go again to the cities.
Yeah.
So you go against the stream in one sense, like that.
Well, we're going against the stream of the Vedic culture. I mean, modern society is totally going against, it's adharmic. It's based on adharma. We need to understand as devotees that the more we leave, Prabhupada was asking one time, what is the definition of intelligence? So, what is the definition of intelligence? We can say so many things. Anyways, Prabhupada replied, intelligence is not leaving your village. You just think about it, right? I mean, simple reply, but making a point. Intelligent means not abandoning our values, our Vedic values, and village life, traditional life, connected with cows, with land. If we abandon that, which is what is happening all over the world, by ever increasing urbanization, then it means not intelligence. Yeah. So devotees are meant to be the ones that are most, enlightened and understanding the philosophy. So we need to pray to Krishna to help us understand more and more inasmuch as bhakti, the whole process of bhakti, Krishna himself, the spiritual life is very deep, profound and confidential and mysterious subject matter. Varnashrama is the same. Varnashrama is actually the same because it's Krishna's creation. None different from him, although it's his external energy, but it is his energy. And that energy is very, very, the workings of that energy, the laws of nature behind all of that. It's like, if we spend half an hour with somebody who knows about, like we were doing yesterday in the garden, about the workings of the plants and the soil, and it's very involved. There are books written by sages. Normally Brahmanas would write that there are books. I was mentioning one of the books is called Vriksha Ayurveda. I'm supposed to give that reference. Vriksha Ayurveda. Vriksha means tree. The whole science of plants and trees. Our sages are the ones who wrote. Farmers are basically meant to follow, it's like the whole philosophy behind natural farming. It's a whole science. Sahadev, the Pandava, original Sahadev, he wrote a book regarding cows, protection of cows. We found that copy a few years ago, but we haven't been able to decipher the language. It's like written in very ancient Odia language. So what I'm saying is that, as devotees, we are meant not only to learn about transcendental spiritual subject matters, but also actual Brahmana is meant to teach. He's a teacher. He's also meant to teach these Vedic sciences that are meant, to help us connect, because all of those sciences are connected with Krishna and are meant to help us further connect and advance in Krishna consciousness. Last question, comment? Yes, you don't have to move.
No. Yes, you're mentioning how Varnashrama can be a little confusing and mystical or mysterious. And in that line of thought also, I was wondering, do you endeavor to reduce confusion and speak about second initiation, using the term second initiation instead of Brahman initiation? And similarly using the term Pujari versus Brahmana, because
second initiation doesn't mean Brahmana initiation.
Yes. I don't know. Do you endeavor to promote that type of thing or not, or to add to the confusion or not to add to the confusion? You know
This may initially add to the confusion, but it is to bring less confusion ultimately.
Right.
Because Prabhupada asked us, not only to introduce Brahminical culture, but also Kshatriya culture, also Vaishya culture. So in Vaishya and Kshatriya culture, they also have sacred thread. we call this thread, Brahmana thread, but actually it's a sacred thread. Because in the Vedic culture, not only Brahmanas have that thread, so as we introduce, and because we've not practically even started to introduce or to set up Varnashrama colleges, then when we will have formulated the curriculum for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, now we have some curriculum for Brahmanas. We don't have for Kshatriyas, we don't have for Vaishyas, we don't have for the whole system. Then individuals, Prabhupada mentions, is one of the statements, as people take these, say, courses or follow the curriculum, then they will be designated as such. Devotees sometimes say, hey, we can't designate, how are we going to designate somebody as a Kshatriya? Well, we're already designating people as Brahmanas, we're designating people as sannyasis, we're designating people as temple presidents, but in our mind we should know that these are just like temporary positions. Prabhupada says it's like we should see it like as a play, as a drama. It's a play, we're part of the play, and temporarily we assume a particular position for the overall management of society, but first and foremost we are eternal spirit souls and we are endeavoring to become advanced devotees, Vaishnavas. First and foremost is Vaishnavism. So that takes some time, but that's what we need to do. I mean, if we want to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
So for now, we should not use, better not to use sacred thread versus Brahman thread, to use Pujari as a term rather than Brahmana, or to use second initiation rather than Brahman initiation.
It's okay, we have the term second initiation, which is awarding the sacred thread, and down the line we will have to come up with a system where we will award, a sacred thread to somebody who has the qualifications of a Kshatriya and of a Vaishya. These are the Dvijas, second born, right? So those who will follow and be able to, succeed in these areas, they will be recognized as such because they have a particular role in society, and the rest will be, basically there are two kinds of people in the Vedic culture or in any culture. There are the leaders and the followers. And the Vedic culture simply tries to help both the leaders and the followers to become qualified leaders and qualified followers. And when we keep Krishna in the center, then that becomes possible. When Krishna is not in the center, the leaders abuse the followers, and there's a whole clash and competition. Yeah. So Krishna is the center. Bhakti, devotional service, is the most important activity, and that's why it's called Daiva, Varnashrama. All of those activities, so-called material activities, when dovetail in Krishna service, they all become devotional service without incurring karmic reaction also. That's a whole other topic. Thank you all very much. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Hare Krishna.
Swami Maharaj ki jai.